Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. All right, how do I even begin to introduce one of the most magnificent human beings in my life? And I know I get excited about people, but when you get to meet somebody and then get the opportunity to, align intellectually, spiritually, and then get to partner in amazing opportunities. So the gentleman that I get the honor of calling one of my dearest friends and almost like a brother. We always said, you're like my brother from another mother. Stuart Crabb, thank you, my friend, for being with me today.
It's my pleasure, Holly. How are you?
I'm wonderful, my love. And I just got so excited. I'm like, I have to celebrate Stuart. A lot of the world already knows who you are. But for those that don't, that are going to be listening, I get to brag about you, and especially in the first few minutes. So Stuart and I think we decided it's been almost a decade, almost 10 years.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And we got aligned and through a common passion of both of ours through strengths and Marcus Buckingham. And we both were so excited about the avenue and being messengers of strengths. But that was just the beginning of what has become, man, Stu, like you've always had your own consulting company. You've always done amazing things. But what I'd love to do is just share with us, if you don't mind, just take us through a quick journey. You were the first person to literally create what now is the global learning and development for Facebook, right? You were the very first person to actually.
I was, yeah. It was an interesting journey.
So take us through that journey, because it's kind of taking you to where you are today and what you're doing.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So I joined Facebook way back in I actually started talking to Facebook in 2008, joined them at the beginning of 2009 when the company was around 600 people. It wasn't even a cash flow positive company. We were residing in a bunch of rented offices scattered across downtown Palo Alto. It was actually kind of funny in those early days. And one of the joys of working for a startup is, many of the accoutrements of corporate life just don't exist. So we were, running from meeting to meeting by running up and down Hamilton Avenue and the High Street in Palo Alto. We were running outside to move our cars every 2 hours so that we didn't get parking tickets. And when I joined Facebook, a number of my friends said to me, what is this thing, this social networking thing? And are you really making the right decision for yourselves and your family? And I was really drawn to the power of what happens when people become connected. And I've always been very passionate about the importance of community. And I think the most important community you start in life with is the family. And Facebook was, even in those early days, pursuing a really big, bold dream to connect everyone in the world. And that was just too exciting and too interesting an opportunity to let me sort of pass me by. So I joined, and I was the very first learning and development professional in the organization. And today, Facebook is well over 15,000 people and growing very, very fast still. Mm-hmm. The learning and development team is a large multidisciplinary team of professionals based in locations all over the world. And it's been a deeply gratifying and fun journey to really help build many of the foundation stones that have gone into making Facebook one of the most interesting and fun places in the world to work. So I feel so blessed and so fortunate, not just to have the opportunity to do these incredible things, but also to work with so many fun, smart, and positive people along the way.
Well, and it was magnificent to get to watch. To literally get to see and experience from the outside looking in, you literally taking on that challenge, that exciting journey ahead, and then to see what happened. And really in a short amount of time, let's face it, right? Like that's
yeah. No, completely. I think that the growth of the organization has been nothing but incredible. And one of the things that's really interesting is, I think that one of the traits and qualities of Facebook employees is a sense of curiosity and fascination about the world around them, coupled with a sense of humility and low ego. One of the things that we're very proud of, or I say we, I'm no longer at Facebook, but one of the things that the people of Facebook are very proud of is, yes, they've built an incredible container, this wonderful, wonderful thing with all of the ways in which it enables connections is an incredible thing. But frankly, the real magic is really what all of the users do with it. It's what they pour into this container every day that makes it so important in the world. Because the reality is, the world is a very chaotic and sometimes very difficult place to live in. And I think that one of the things that we've seen at Facebook is that when you create the means for people to come together and create community, the world is just a better place. I love to look at peace.facebook.org from time to time. It was a product that was built in partnership with students at Stanford University to show in real time how the connections that were occurring between tribes of people that you wouldn't typically expect to be friends were occurring every day. So the number of Israelis and the number of Palestinians that were becoming friends, the number of Northern Irish Catholics and Protestants, the number of Sudanese, North and South Sudanese. I mean, everywhere you look, many of the assumptions we make about how we see each other and how we regard each other don't actually play out at a personal level. Because when you see someone's children, it becomes harder to hate. When you see the way in which people are trying to live fulfilling, happy lives, it drives or it helps to create the basis for understanding. And I think that's an important thing to have in this world, especially as we're living in such difficult and sometimes very negative times.
Yeah. Do you know that there was a story? Oh, there's so many stories over the years, but there's some that you hear that you go, that I personally have witnessed, that if it wasn't for Facebook, that this life would not be here today. And I don't even know if you know this story, Stu. I don't know if I called you, but I have to go back and I have to laugh because I want the listeners to know I'm always willing to pull back the layers of the onion. The very first time, and because of Stu, I've been very fortunate to be able to work with Facebook over the years. And the very first time I was coming to campus, you were having me come, and that was in the smaller building. So now you're out of those small offices, but you had one building, and you were meeting me at the front of the building. But right before I was getting on the plane, Stuart, do you remember this? You called me and you go, Halls, we have a problem. And I go, what is it, my love? And you go, it would probably be a really good idea if you got a Facebook account before you show up. I'm like, oh, and you go, I've noticed you don't have one yet, and I am getting you in the door here. Do you remember that? And
I completely forgotten. That's so funny.
And I was like,
what's changed in those last few years,
Oh, seriously. And I was like, can you help me do that? You go, the first thing we're going to do when you get here. But the other thing was walking in and going, I sat there and I was waiting for you, and I'm looking around, and then I asked you, I go, Stu, why are these guys like skating around on their skateboards and their longboards? And you looked at me and you said, because we always want people in their most creative state. That's our engineers.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that is really important to understand about some of the principles that underpin the Facebook culture is, well, there are several. One of the most important is that everyone's voice inside the organization matters. Mm-hmm. Everyone has an opportunity to be part of and contribute to the zeitgeist and the thing that Facebook is building. And Mark has always encouraged discourse and debate and involving everyone in the way the organization is run. And I think that not only does that drive innovation, but it also drives trust and loyalty in the organization. And we also recognized in those early days that many of us had come from much larger, frankly, really crappy companies where administrative and political bureaucracy got in the way of people being able to be their true, authentic selves. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to say, we want to be different. You have a responsibility to contribute to the life of the organization. We want you to work hard, but we also, in return, want to give you an experience of work that maybe that you're not really going to get anywhere else. And so creating the right environment for people to really flourish was one of the most important things that we did right out of the gate, which is one of the reasons why strengths-based thinking and strengths-based development was so important. And I think that those principles are still completely visible in the organization today, even as it's become such a huge organization. Every single person is encouraged to come to work, to be their authentic self, to contribute and be part of the journey. And actually, some of the very best ideas and some of the most important ways in which the companies have evolved has come through the feedback of new employees that have just joined.
Oh,
And that is wonderful, because
yeah.
that actually says that as an organization, Facebook is continuing to take its own development as an organization seriously.
Which you got to love.
Yeah.
Yeah, just knowing that. So I want to hold the ribbon on the bow and not even get to what you're doing now, because I want to kind of wrap this all up with letting everybody know what you're doing now, because it's amazing and taking off in ways that you don't even have enough time to handle. But you know what, Stu, you and I have been together for a long time, and we were laughing because it's like our kids were how old when we first met, and like sharing stories of our kids, but right? Yeah, tiny. But I would love to know, take us back to a pivotal moment. Maybe it goes back to your young boyhood, growing up. I know you grew up, over in the UK, right?
Yeah.
Was there a pivotal moment in your life that you would say that when you think about going back to that had a lot to do with who you are today? I mean, Stu, what I love about you is when you decide you're going to do something, you just go after it. I mean, let's face it, you can just tell how bright and intelligent you are, but you have this desire to serve our world. And I don't even know, is there a story that was really pivotal for you growing up that really you would say that was the moment I knew I'm going to be something great? Or maybe it was adversity you faced that you gained resilience through?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting, one of the things that one of the stories I love to tell when I'm talking to people about why strengths matter, and how individuals should be thinking about their strengths, is that we can see the thread of what brings us alive, what gives us these moments of passion and flow as we look back on our lives. And for me, one of the things that I realized, and it actually was a realization that came to me quite late in life, is that when I was a kid, one of the things that I always did, I loved putting my hand up for any opportunity where I could stand up in front of people, make them laugh and make them feel inspired and make them feel happy. And I was that kid that always raised my hand in school for every opportunity to be in a school play, to have a speaking part at parents' evenings. I was always that kid that, got a lot of joy from how I was thinking about projecting myself and noticing the kind of positive responses I was getting back. And it was probably no surprise to my mother that here I am almost 40 years later, really effectively still doing the same thing, standing up in front of people. I love to teach. I love to lead people in discussions that will help them think about how to apply the principles of positive psychology to the way they are and the way they show up for each other. It's a fascinating thing how our strengths path is with us all of our lives. The challenge I think that we all face is making sure that we pay enough attention to it, and that we continue to listen to that little whispering voice in our ear that says, this matters, this is what you want to do, this is what the world needs to see of you, this is where the best of you will be seen by others. And I'm just very, very grateful that nothing stood in my way as I moved through childhood and adulthood and found my pathway to doing what I'd love to do best every day, which is to teach and inspire others. And I give enormous credit to my parents, who never ever said no, who never ever said you can't do that or that's a silly idea. They always encouraged me to focus on the better half of myself. And I'm really grateful for that, because the experience that we have growing up and the impact our parents have on our sense of self and our expectations about what our self is able to do in the world is profound. And I was lucky to have a mum and a dad that would always listen to my problems and reframe it and say, well, what would be a different way of thinking about this? What would be a more positive way or a more constructive way in which you could solve this problem? And so, whilst I'm sure there are many smaller pivotal moments, I think actually in the long arc of my life, I'm incredibly grateful for the fact that all of those early seeds of what strengthens me in my job and made a really fulfilling career were the things that my parents, didn't just get out of the way, but actually actively tried to really cultivate in me. So I'm forever grateful for those early years.
Do you know, and this is just taking me to a story that has forever sat on my heart. And this has a lot, it all makes sense now because you're forever like your parents and what they did. And we all grow up, right? And you grew up in a different world and a different culture, right? And we all had our growing up. And it's not to say, and I always give credit to, with all good intentions, sometimes our parents don't mean to not encourage our dreams. They think they're doing something to help us, right? So you were blessed. You were fortunate that you had always that encouragement. But the story, Stu, I remember you telling me that your dream was to surprise your mother because you had the money and the resources. And do you remember? You took her and you surprised her and you gave her the flight on what no longer exists today.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
will you tell us that? I love that story. You gave her the dream of a life. You wanted to surprise her. Yes.
Well, my mom has had a lifelong interest in science and space exploration, and she was of a generation that grew up watching NASA put the man on the moon, and really, dreaming about what was beyond the stars. And I think many of us ask ourselves those bigger, more existential questions about whether we're alone, and how exciting that journey of discovery might be if we're one day able to, break free of the bonds of this earth. And I think that, she realized very early on that, that was just something that she would only ever be able to experience in films and in books and in her imagination. And so I think it was around 2004, I had a very, very exceptional opportunity to take a guest on Concorde. And Concorde is no longer in service, but it was and still is to this day the only supersonic airplane that was ever in production. And so I surprised my mum, took her to Heathrow Airport in London, and we got on Concorde. And Concorde, this thing is a steel tube that flies, at almost 2,000 miles an hour at 65,000 feet above the surface of the Earth. And it was really, it was being able to let her look out of that porthole, of that tiny little 7 or 8 inch porthole, because you're up so high. This is not a normal plane. And for her to see the curvature of the Earth and to be able to look up into the night, into the deep blue that's beyond, which you don't get to see from down below, was really the closest I think that she was ever and is ever likely to get. And it was a real life-changing moment for her, because it was the closest she got to see beyond. And that was just wonderful. It was amazing. And it's funny, it's something she still loves to brag about to her friends, friends at the Bridge Club, even today. It's kind of funny.
No, but you see me, I had to take off my glasses because I just get emotional when I think about the gift that you gave her and the opportunity. And I think when I think about who you are, Stu, and who I know you to be, it's how you're raising your daughters, right? You're wanting them to see the world. You're wanting them to build them up and encourage them to go be who they are and who they were put here to be. And when we talk about those strengths, I always call them as the butterflies on our shoulders. But you've lived it, my friend. You've lived it and you continue to live it. And that story for your mother, like for any listener out there, I'm not saying that you have to go buy, spend enough money to put your mother on a Concorde, which doesn't even exist anymore. But
I know.
But what lesson learned? What are we doing to thank the people that have been there, to celebrate the people that have helped us continue to believe in us, our balcony people? And, my heart just got hit right now because I was thinking, Stu, this is something that every single human being out there could take away is, what are we doing and it may be somebody you haven't talked to in 15 or 20 years, but maybe that one manager or that one person or that maybe it was a teacher, right? Or a professor. It could be somebody in your life that really was that person that kept you going and believed in you. And maybe it's time to send the note or reach out,
absolutely.
Find them on Facebook, right? Find them somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, look, here's the thing. I actually feel very, very strongly at this point in my life. I'm about to turn 50. And I'm
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And for all your listeners, I have a huge Star Wars costume theme party at our house. We have 100 guests coming as stormtroopers and Darth Vaders and Princess Leia's and R2-D2s, and it's kind of my own little kind of fun indulgence. But the bigger meta point here is, I realize that as I kind of approach the halfway point of my life, I realize now that the single most important responsibility that we have in how we interact and show care to others is the responsibility to cultivate positive emotions in others. And I don't necessarily mean be happy, because what is happiness? Well, happiness is a bit like the weather. It's a bit of a slightly nondescript term. When I think about the weather, I think about the rain, I think about the wind, I think about snow, I think about the ways in which we experience weather. And for me, when I think about how we experience happiness, it's through virtues like joy and resilience and courage and bravery, and honesty and zest for life. Many of the things that Marty Seligman talks about in his book Flourish, where, we have this great opportunity to notice how to draw these positive emotions out in others. And it's stunningly easy to do. And what's really joyful about that is not only do you give the gift of positive emotions to others, but one of the really wonderful things about doing something in service for others, or something in service of something bigger than yourselves, is that you get this rush of energy back. Yeah. So it becomes a completely two-way process. It gives you the ability to feel fulfilled in a way that was also constructive and helpful for others. And we all have, there are so many small and easy ways we can do that. Holding the door open for someone when they're struggling with bags, giving somebody appreciable feedback to say, you really matter. Or if you're a manager, taking the time to just say, I want to spend the next hour talking about the very best of you and how I can cultivate some of that so that you can have a bigger impact here. There are many, many ways we do that, but one of the most important responsibilities, I think, in life is the responsibility to do that, because when you do that, you create the potential to build positive teams and positive organizations. You create the potential to build positive families and positive churches. You create the opportunity to build positive society. And as I look on my newsfeed today and watch the glorious success of Michael Phelps winning his 22nd gold medal, I'm completely struck by how wonderful it is to see my newsfeed on Facebook and my newsfeed on CNN full of positivity and full of success and happiness and euphoria as we celebrate this remarkable man and his human achievement. And how powerful it is to see that contrasted with many of the harder, more destructive, and ultimately more negative things that we see in our news stories every day, which really do nothing other than weigh us down and build negative emotions and negative sentiment.
Yes,
that's not how human endeavor moves to the next level. That's not how people break through and achieve greater success in their lives, not by focusing on the worst half of themselves, but figuring out how they take the better half of who they are and turn it into something really magnificent.
I love that. And you know what? That's exactly why you're doing what you're doing now. Oxygen. Yes. I love the name Oxygen. I mean, it's been your company for a long time, but you're really taking it to the next level. To me, it's all about breathing and it's all about taking time. And tell us about what you're doing now, Stu, because it's magnificent and it's right in line with your passion of what you've been just talking about, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wonderful business partner, Sarah Sperling, and I founded Oxygen Consulting. And our core mission is to help build positive organizations, one person, one manager, one leader at a time. And the reason why that is important is not just because of the things that I was just saying a few minutes ago, but when I was during my time at Facebook, one of the things that I'm most proud of is the work that I was a small part of in building Facebook to be one of the most positive work companies in the world. The impact that's had on the company's performance, the level of innovation, and the level of retention and loyalty within the employee base is truly remarkable. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, unprecedented in corporate America. So taking a lot of the learnings from that, as well as many of the way in which I think about the importance of positivity at work, is really where we're focused. So our core mantra is to help organizations build a positive workplace. So we're focused on several dimensions. The first is helping managers and leaders, because as you and I know, the manager trumps the brand. It doesn't matter how great your brand is. It doesn't matter how interested or how great the benefits are or the environment is. If your manager sucks, if your manager doesn't know how to do that, then the experience of work can be a completely difficult one and a hard and painful one. So helping managers and leaders to think about how they cultivate positive emotions through strengths-based development, through appreciable feedback, and through showing care is really, really important, because we're human beings. We're not human doings. People experience the world through an emotional lens. Even if we have an external face that is a private one, we are humans. And one of the most important things that Oxygen is focused on is how to help managers be able to connect with all of their people in a way that is fulfilling and positive, in a way that enables them to flourish. Because flourishing people build and are part of flourishing teams, and flourishing teams create high-performance organizations. So through our work in developing and delivering manager development programming, through consulting, through executive and manager development and coaching, through keynote speaking, we're really trying to help organizations, particularly small organizations who have this wonderful opportunity to build the foundations right out of the gate, right out of the get-go, is really where we're focused. And the reason we're focused there, because both Sarah and I have been in small organizations where we've had the opportunity to start with a blank sheet of paper. And when you get that wonderful opportunity, you get the opportunity to build something that can be truly magnificent.
You know what's really cool that everybody needs to know, and I love this, Stu, that I learned just a few minutes ago before we started our interview, is that and I want the listeners to know, if anybody wants to get in touch with Stu, I'm going to let him tell you how best to learn more about what he's doing, find out more about the company. But I'm going to warn you, it's taken off so fast that now they're in that we have to say no, and they don't even have business cards done yet.
We don't. It's been a very hectic couple of months, and we're already working with a group of really interesting, wonderful companies that are all passionate about trying to get this right.
Talk about flourishing, Stu. Yeah. Flourishing, your company is flourishing at its essence. Think about that, my friend, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, well, I completely. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. Well, I'm excited, and I'm sorry I can't be with you all tomorrow. And I was going to do Princess Leia, just saying, because that's like my little idol. But as we wrap up, for one, I just thank you for being who you are in this world. Thank you for being always coming from such a place of authenticity and humility. I love those qualities about you, my friend. And would you let everyone know if they would like to know more or connect with you? And I'm happy to say they have to come through me first, but I think if you have a way for them to get in touch with you, what would that be?
You know, the easiest way to reach me right now, and certainly actually ongoing, is either through Facebook. So www.facebook.com/Stuart, Stuart.
Who gets that one? Only you.
I know. I'm very, very lucky. That was right in the early days when we launched what we call the vanity plates, what Facebook called the vanity plates. I was very lucky to get the first Stuart. So that's one way to reach me. The other way to reach me is through my email, Stuart Crabb, StuartCrabb, all one word, @gmail.com.
Perfect. Oh, thank you. Mwah. Thank you for being
My pleasure. It's such a joy to spend time with you, Holly, and I wish we got to spend more time together.
We will. Now, get ready.
Absolutely.
Tell that beautiful Sarah I said hi, and get ready. Here we go, world. Thank you, darling. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.